listeners. Welcome to Plano's Political Pitbull Podcast. I am Esther.
And I'm Ruth.
And today we are going to talk about the State Board of Education, which passed a new curriculum. And it passed by 8-7. So just by one vote. And our representative on the State Board of Education, Pam Little, she voted against it, this new curriculum. And she made a statement or wrote a statement on her Facebook page, and this is what she said about it. After careful reviewing the Texas Bluebonnet Learning OER, I voted against its adoption because it does not meet the needs of our students. While it claims to be a return to classical education, the program has serious flaws. The phonics section delays teaching letters and fails to follow the proven
letter names.
I do, we do.
Delays teaching letter names.
Okay, delays teaching letter names. And fails to follow the proven I do, we do, you do model established by the reading academies. The program's content is overwhelming, leaving little time for students to practice reading and develop critical skills like fluency and comprehension. It also includes long 30-minute lessons for kindergartners, which are not age appropriate. Additionally, my review team identified links to what I consider inappropriate reading suggestions, as well as significant emphasis on DEI and Common Core, which do not align with the values many Texas families hold dear. As someone who firmly supports the teaching of biblical values in education, I believe our educational materials should reflect the principles that have guided generations of Texas. Lessons should emphasize essential skills like reading while instilling fundamental virtues such as kindness, compassion, and respect for others. These values, rooted in biblical teachings like the Golden Rule and the parable of the Good Samaritan, are vital for character development and positive learning environment. Unfortunately, Bluebonnet learning falls short of this standard. So, we decided to look up the curriculum and see for ourselves. And, oh my goodness, Pam Little was completely right in her assessment. So, full disclosure, Ruth and I both have degrees in education and experience teaching young children. So we have knowledge in this realm. Okay, we looked at the kindergarten curriculum, since Pam Little did mention it. And we looked at the language arts, writing, and phonics parts of the curriculum.
Yes.
So, Ruth, tell the people what you found.
Yeah, so I focused on the foundational skills part of it because she spent a lot of time talking about the kindergarten curriculum and the failures of delaying teaching letter names. And yeah, she was not wrong. They don't start learning. I wasn't able to find where they actually started learning about letters until Unit 3. In Unit 1, they have this introduction, and it says this in it. At the beginning of the lesson, you will tell the class, today's sound is You will then lead the class in some engaging oral language exercises that will allow students to say and hear the sound not m. Once students are familiar with the sound, you will show them how to draw a picture of the sound. You will write the letter M on the board or chart paper and explain this is how to make a picture of the sound. So instead of the traditional, this is the letter M, it makes a sound they're doing it the opposite way. Putting the sound, putting a visual to the sound versus a sound to the visual. So I personally think that's a good idea. I know that it has been more popular lately to teach based on sounds versus what the letters look like, because when a student is learning to read, they don't say, I mean, here's another quote. It says, when you read the word cat, it is essential to think and say k-at, not C-A-T. So students learning the names of the letters isn't as important as them learning what the letters sound like.
But they still have to learn the name.
They still have to. But they still have to learn what the letters sound like, and they still have to learn the names.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they don't start learning what the letters sound like until the third unit. The entire first unit is just about exploring sounds, like counting with fingers, knock and count, doing like where you knock 3 times, and you're putting up fingers 1, 2, 3, and you're having the kids copy that and do that, or identify same or different sounds. This is like stuff that you would typically see in like a music class.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but it does, like she said, it's delaying the writing and reading skills that they're supposed to be learning in their ELA.
What's ELA?
English Language Arts instruction.
Okay.
Sorry.
For the folks that don't know that.
And then in Unit 2, they start, and this was really annoying to me, because it's like they're going backwards completely, where normally you would start with letters, then you would start with blending the letters, and then you would go into syllables, you know? The words are getting bigger.
Yes.
They don't do that here. Instead, in Unit 2, you start doing syllable blending, which is basically like you have the word cupcake, and the example they have here in the guide is that you put your 2 hands out, and it's 2 syllables. You only have 2 hands.
What happens when you have 3 syllables?
Then you use your arm.
Oh, okay.
You do the arm method of pointing to each segment of your arm and then blending it down. But for 2 syllables, you have your 2 hands out. You flip one hand for one syllable, the other hand for the other syllable, and then you clap for the second. So it would go like cup, cake, cupcake.
Okay.
This is all, they're not seeing the words. Throughout Unit 1 and Unit 2, they're not seeing the letters, they're not seeing the words, they're not seeing anything. There's no reading going on, and there's no writing either. In Unit 1...
Oh, there's no visual component to this. I just noticed.
Except for pictures. So, like, you might see the word. So you might see a picture of a cupcake.
Oh, okay.
But you're not learning how to read the word.
I see.
That's what I'm understanding from it anyway. And they're not learning to write either. Unit 1, they're just learning to draw lines. They're just drawing lines or humps or wavy lines. And it's the same thing in Unit 2. Oh, wait, no, actually, I was wrong. Unit 2, they start drawing the humps.
Oh, Unit 2, they draw the humps. Okay.
Yeah, and the wavy lines and zigzags to, prepare them for writing the letters. I don't know why you can't just have them practice writing the letters, because unless these kids are coming in having never held a marker or a pen in their life,
or a crayon
in their life, they should be able to already do this stuff.
Yes,
it'll be messy. It won't be the cleanest lines, but they'll be able to do it.
Remember, these are 5-year-olds. A lot of children go to preschool. My kids went to preschool. They came out of preschool knowing their letters, knowing the sounds of their letters, knowing how to write them, knowing how to write words, knowing how to read words. Any child who goes to a halfway decent preschool is going to be bored out of their minds.
Yeah, a lot of these writing practices is what you do in special education for kids who don't have that fine motor skills already.
Yeah. And if you're an average 5-year-old, you should have been drawing and coloring by now. So by this point, so this is really quite delayed. And the kids are going to come in and they're just going to be bored. We had that issue with my youngest, who when she went to kindergarten, she was quite bored, but she was in a small enough classroom. Part of the reason she was bored was when I looked at some of the worksheets they were sending home. I said, "Oh, she already did this last year, the exact same worksheets in preschool." So I went to the teacher. I said, "Look, she's bored. She's already done this. Why she's acting up a little? Can you give her, instead of giving her these worksheets, can you get her different worksheets?" Now, the class was small enough. There were only about 12 kids in the class. My children never attended a public school in their life. They always went to private school. So the classrooms were very small, and the teacher said, "Sure, no problem." So it wasn't a big deal. We opted for private school because we wanted them to have a Jewish education as well. That was a choice we could make. Sadly, not all parents can make that choice for their children. So you've got a kindergarten teacher. She's got 30 kids in a classroom. She's not going to have the time, if half the class is bored, to create different worksheets for the class who's already done this, for the part of the class that's already done this. And they said they don't want skipping.
Yeah, they encourage you not to skip anything, even if some kids in the class are already proficient in this stuff.
And right. So this is not...
They're like, you might be tempted to skip some of these sections. We encourage you not to skip anything.
Yeah.
So after the syllable part in the first part of Unit 2, we're in Unit 2 now, and they're doing syllables. We haven't even touched letters yet.
Oh boy.
We've just discovered and explored sounds, and now we're doing syllables, specifically two syllables, 2 syllable words, like bathtub, pencil, sister. After that, then we're going down the ladder to, normally you go up that, we're going down the ladder. Then you go down the ladder rung to blending letters. So like sh-e, she, sh-oo, shoe, z-oo, zoo. This usually would be the second step, not the third.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Off,
Still no visualization.
And then for 3-letter words, it'd be like fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing that, but the kids have not seen the letters.
They haven't seen the letters. They haven't seen a word yet.
Not what according to what I'm understanding with what I'm seeing in the guide, no.
And the guide is quite overwhelming. It's very detailed. There's not much room for any kind of variation or creativity.
I mean, obviously you can add certain things.
I don't see when you'd have the time, because that's the other thing. These lessons are very, very long.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
And these are kindergartners.
I want to finish. So we're doing all of that. That's throughout the rest of Unit 2. Then we get to finally Unit 3, and we're finally introduced to the letter sounds.
Oh.
Lesson 1 being M. Lesson 2 being or a. Lesson 3. This is what you would typically think of that you'd be starting on day 1.
Oh, they blended sounds before they... Oh.
That's what I've been saying.
It's backwards.
It's completely backwards. Normally you would be, the letter of the week, and you would start that with day 1 with typically the letter A. Now they're doing it based on sounds, which personally I think is, just try it out. It is becoming more popular.
So if I may give you an example. So when I was way back, when I was student teaching, and I was in a neurologically impaired kindergarten, so special ed kindergarten, the teacher, the way she introduced a letter was she first played a song. And it was, one I always remember is C is for Cookie by Cookie Monster. So he'd sing C is for Cookie, that's good enough for me. Cookie starts with C. And then he'd list all of the words that start with C. And then they finish the song, and then she'd go. So there's your auditory for all the auditory learners. Then she'd go to a dry erase board, and she'd say, and she'd draw the C. And she said, okay, this is a C. And tell me, do you remember any of the words that Cookie Monster said? And so they would list the things that they remembered, and she would write those words on the board around the C. And it would, continue that way. So you had the visual, you had the auditory.
Yeah. So
of that.
Yeah. So in this case, it would be similarly, you introduce the sound and you do like words that start with the sound like monkey, mommy, mug,
But you're not telling them the letters M.
And then you draw it on the board and say that's the letter M. So it's a little backwards, but they're still learning the same things. It's just done introducing the sound first versus the letter first.
And that's fine.
It's putting a visual to the sound.
Yeah, I can see that, but you're not getting there until Unit 3.
That's the problem. If they started this with Unit 1, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. But because it's starting all the way in Unit 3, that's very delayed. They have no letter recognition at this point.
And how long would it take to go through each unit?
I don't know. That would depend on the class.
All right. Okay.
I would think.
Is a unit a week? I mean, you said that there was...
I don't know, because these lessons are also quite long.
Yeah. Like some of them are like 30 minutes long.
Yeah, so they have how many minutes they expect you to do these. And by the way, these are all whole group lessons. Some have independent practice where they're doing it on their own, particularly in the writing practice with the drawing. But everything else is whole group. There's no small group.
Yeah, so there's no individual attention. There's no individualized learning, which is not my philosophy of education.
So like in this one, lesson 2 in, what is this? In lesson 2, unit 2, for example, they have a whole group lesson on syllable blending, and that's the warm-up for 5 minutes. You're spending 5 minutes on the warm-up.
Yeah.
Okay. Then 20 minutes on the next part for practicing blending.
20 minutes practicing blending.
They have certain sections here, like doing a tap and chase activity and then a blend syllables and sounds activity, and that should take 20 minutes. I guess they expect you to take 10 minutes on each. And then for writing skills, you have 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And let me tell you what 10 minutes is spent on each one. 10 minutes making humps with modeling clay.
10 minutes to make humps out of modeling clay?
I mean,
okay.
Unless you have I guess if the kids are not exactly
So after 5 minutes, you'll start having the kids making other things out of modeling clay.
I mean, if you have some kids, they don't focus, they're not doing it, sure, it'll take them 10 minutes. But other ones who are just like, done.
Yeah, that's...
1 minute. And
especially those who have an artistic tendency.
Especially in big classes, you have a diverse group of kids. So you're going to have those kids that are like done in 1 minute, and then the other kids who need the whole 10 minutes.
Okay.
Then you have draw humps on a vertical surface. So you're just practicing drawing humps over and over again to prepare for writing the letters H, N, M, etc. 10 minutes on that. And then that's whole group. And then independently, they would be doing hump practice with these activity pages for 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So in total, the entire lesson 2 would take, I don't think you would do this all in one go. This would be spread out. 25, oh no, math. Hold on. 25, 35, 45, 60 minutes.
An hour spent on this?
Obviously, I think
no, you couldn't do this. You couldn't do this.
Yeah, you would split it up. Day. You would split it up. This probably they're expecting you to do each lesson in a week.
So if each lesson is a week, then a unit could take a month.
How many lessons are in this unit?
I mean, that would be...
There are...
Oh my gosh.
10 lessons in this unit. So that would be 10. So if you spent a week on each lesson, that would be 10 weeks.
Wow.
And they haven't learned a single letter.
Oh my goodness. That's... wow. I was an aide in a handicapped classroom for preschool, and they learned letters faster than this. Okay? There are many ways to teach letters, okay? And many, many, many kinds of ways to teach reading. You have the Orton-Gillingham method. You have the pure phonics method. Name it out there. There's a ton of them. Now, not each method is going to work for each child, but I can tell you that this brings it to a whole other level here.
Yeah. So, yeah. And they also don't start writing the letters until Unit 3 as well.
And this doesn't sound like a curriculum to me. This sounds like an instruction guide. I mean, you really have given the teachers lessons specifically on what they have to do. This is very micromanaged.
So that's what there's many different curriculum books that are like that. So this is Blue Bonnets, and Texas wants to adopt this, and they're having this whole incentive thing that they want districts to adopt this. There's other books out there like HMH.
Mm-hmm.
That's a popular one that's used right now, and that's also phonics. That's a phonics curriculum book, and you follow the guidebook. It's very good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it has basically everything in there, guided questions that you could ask. You can obviously add your own questions if you want, but it's a guidebook. It's a guideline. Mm-hmm. You can change certain things, add certain things. It depends on the district as well. Sometimes they want you to follow everything to a T. Some districts give you a little more leeway. But yeah, that's what these guidebooks are.
I see. So this isn't not something that, well, of course I was in a special ed class, but the district where I had my special education student teaching, they didn't have this much detail. It was because each child had their own individualized plan. So it was, by the end of the year, each student will know all of their letters. There was no, she had her own.
Well, that was special education, right?
Yes.
So that's different.
But this was her these were her materials that she used. And
yes, so special education is a little different in that it's not as unified, one size fits all, because you're not following. The goal isn't to follow the any specific guidebook or curriculum book. It's to follow the IEP, the individual
lesson plan.
The individual educational plan. That's the goal. They need to meet that.
Yeah.
More than anything else. So they have to be more. They have to have more freedom.
Yes, but you've got 30 kids. There are going to be 30 different ways in there that each child learns. And my philosophy is you teach to the way the child learns, and very individualized, because there are some kids who are going to be auditory learners. There are some kids who are going to be visual learners. There are some kids who have to feel in their fingers, tactile. It's called tactile learning.
That's why our education system is so broken, because we have such big classes that you can't do that unless you do a lot of small group lessons, which this does not have.
Yeah, it doesn't have it at all. So I definitely, Pam Little, in my estimate, just from what I'm seeing here, from what we found here, definitely made the right decision on this.
And we haven't even touched reading, the read alouds.
Oh yes, the read alouds, which lasts 30 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes on the warm up, on simply introducing the read aloud. That's way too much. It should not take you 10 minutes to introduce it.
It shouldn't take you 10 minutes to introduce anything. It should take you 1 minute. Today, class, we're going to learn about the letter M.
Yeah.
Or today, class, we're going to learn about the sound
This isn't
That's it, you're done.
This isn't 5th grade where you're analyzing what the story may be about in great detail based on every little minute detail within the cover and the introduction and all of that. This is kindergartners who have very short attention spans who want you to just read the book.
Yeah.
And yes, you ask about what do you see on the cover, but you can't take too long on that. Because you're going to lose them like that, especially these kids that are used to watching iPads and it's very fast paced.
Yeah, and watching computer screens. So, but even if they weren't, nobody reads a book for 30 minutes. The books for kindergartners, they don't last for 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
What
the read aloud.
are they reading?
The read aloud itself is 30 minutes. It's because I think they're not just reading it. They have these comprehension questions that they want you to ask.
That's fine, but the comprehension questions shouldn't take 5 minutes.
I think
take
they
a few
have
minutes.
it shouldn't take that long. They might have too many. When I was student teaching, I was running into the problem of I was asking too many questions, and so I was losing them. So I had to learn very quickly how to keep on engaging them and not ask too many questions and figure out which questions were age appropriate. And some of these questions I don't think are exactly age appropriate.
That was the other thing Pam said. These are not age appropriate for the children at all.
So they have essential background information. That's part of the warm-up thing that takes 5 minutes, where the teacher is giving them background information on, for example, the King Solomon one, because that was a really controversial lesson, where they're explaining that this is a story from the Christian Bible and the Hebrew Bible.
Thank you.
The Hebrew and the Christian Bible. And also, Solomon is also described in the Muslim faith. And, like, all this background information. So that's part of why the anticipatory set, as you would call it,
Yes.
takes 10 minutes. Because
Yes.
you have the what have we already learned, the review, because this is lesson 6, and then the background of the story they're about to read. I don't know why it's taking you 5 minutes for each of these.
If you have to go into that much detail.
Unless you're having to stop a lot and redirect, yeah, it's going to take a while.
This was the unit was on kings and queens, and Solomon was a king, was an historical king, and they are, which I think is a little, I wonder what the book is that goes with this. Is this like a children's book? Because you're not going to open up, a Bible and read it. It's way too detailed. You would have to get a children's book on King Solomon with this particular story in it, which doesn't go in. And also it's not an age appropriate story. So
it's like they're like they talk about King David and then say like King Solomon learned about being a ruler from his father, King David. His father inspired him to be a great leader. The key word there is inspire. So the teacher asks, to inspire, or the teacher says, to inspire means to make someone excited or encouraged to do something. Who in your life inspires you? And then the students respond. Then you continue on with the story.
That kind of interrupts the flow of the story, though, when you do that. Too. I also think inspired is a little bit of a big vocabulary word for a 5-year-old.
Yeah, this is very much something that the way they're pausing and the way that you have these big vocabulary words, it reminds me of when I was student teaching in 2nd grade.
Oh my, okay. That's a big jump there. We've gone
personally, that's what it reminds me of.
Okay.
Because they're asking personal questions. Yeah, really what they're doing in this is asking personal questions. It's nothing about really the story, which I guess is age appropriate, you're not asking them to analyze the story. But you're also not asking them to like identify any characters or what the setting is. And that's typically what you want them to start learning. They're going to continue doing that in 1st grade too, but you typically start that in kindergarten as well. You do that they do that in preschool, kindergarten, and 1st grade.
Mm-hmm.
Characters, setting, yeah. Yeah,
I could see that. Well, one lesson that I looked up was the Good Neighbor lesson that they had. So part of the reason they wanted this curriculum was they wanted to add more what they call classical education. And they wanted some stories based on I don't want to say religious, but based on biblical text. Now, I thought when the legislature wanted them to have more education on the Bible, how it affected history, it was going to be dealt in with a history class.
Well, that's the thing. You assumed it would have to do in how it affected history. No, they're just sticking it anywhere they want. This is just a reading instruction. It doesn't need to be here.
No.
And this story in particular, where it talks a lot about God doesn't need to be in here either.
No. But I understand. So they picked this particular story of Solomon because in this story, God says to him, I'm going to give you whatever you want. Anything you want, I will give to you. And Solomon could have asked for anything in the whole wide world. He could have asked for money. He could have asked for, wives, anything he wanted. And he chooses to ask for wisdom. And that is what supposedly made him a very wise king. And so God gave him wisdom. And that is a very good, to develop character, that's a very good story, because what did this man who could have had anything ask for? It's wisdom. But I don't think that that's a particularly good age-appropriate story for kindergartners. First of all, you have to. Wisdom is a little bit of a hard thing to explain.
The problem with this story, and I also found a question that's not exactly, the kids aren't going to be able to, this is going to be a hard question for them to answer, but I'll get into that later, a bit in a minute. What was I saying?
The problem with this story.
What was the last thing you said?
I said it's not age appropriate because, wisdom, how do you describe wisdom to a kindergartner?
I remember now. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I have like a million things going on in my head right now. The thing with this story is also because it talks about God a lot, the 5-year-old is going to come to their parent and be like, hey, Mom, or hey, Dad, we learned about God today. Yeah. And then the teacher's going to have a nice little conversation with the parent about what they actually were learning.
Yeah. And you've got kids that maybe have never heard about God, don't understand God. I don't even know if they fully grasp the concept of God. Have they learned about this?
No. I remember
in their homes.
I remember being in religious classes, and it honestly this story took me back to that. Like Sunday school and all that, or like religious school. And I don't think I understood the concept of God at that time. I was just, having fun with the holidays and learning the stories as they went. But I don't think I fully grasped what God was. I just kind of imagined him as some kind of cloud in the sky.
Yeah, and I don't think they even at 5 went into Solomon. And
no,
you were in an actual Jewish private school, so they didn't even teach about Solomon at 5 in kindergarten.
No, we were doing like creation, but they shouldn't be doing that in this either.
So with the Good Neighbor lessons, which is, I think, further down in the curriculum, they're talking about the Golden Rule. There is many religions that have a form of the Golden Rule as part of their doctrine. And they even have a chart where they list all the religions that have this. But my question is
that in Serving Our Neighbors?
Yes, Serving Your Neighbors.
That's in the previous unit, Unit 7.
Okay. Well, have they gone into all these different religions? Because they have a chart of each religion and how the Golden Rule is phrased in their books. But then you've got to go into each religion. Some people are Christian, some are Jewish, some are Muslim. Now, maybe if you had each or a student in the classroom who is each of these religions, that might help you. But again, these are 5-year-olds.
Yeah, so
I went through, when I was teaching preschool, I did the holidays. Mm-hmm. And I did each holiday, and I did I remember we did. I taught them about Hanukkah, and I taught them about Christmas.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
what
just
you should be doing.
read them stories.
If you want to expose them to other religions from all across the world, expose them to holidays and traditions, stuff like that. That's age appropriate because that's what they're learning anyway with like American holidays.
Yes, that would be a good place to start. I would not start with the concept of the golden rule for a 5-year-old.
That's going to go way over their head.
So,
and then they have questions like this where it talks about Queen Sheba's caravan, and they ask, a caravan is a large group of people traveling together. So they explain what a caravan is. Yeah, they're going to understand that. And long ago, people traveled in caravans to bring things to trade. What things did the Queen of Sheba have in her caravan? Now, unless you have a picture of all the things in her caravan and you're able to be like, I see that she has such and such, and then they're able to pick up on that and point out what they see, they're not going to be able to answer that question.
Yeah. I don't know if a lot of teachers are going to be able to incorporate this. I don't know if a lot of school districts are going to want to incorporate all this.
Like I said, when I was just starting student teaching, that's the kind of stuff I tried out because, I was just starting, I was learning. And I would read a sentence thinking that they would be able to recall what I said and be able to answer the question. So like the story says, arriving with a very great caravan with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all she had on her mind. So then you would expect the children, you would want them to be able to recall that the caravan had spices and gold and precious stones. Yeah, no, they couldn't do that. They're still learning reading comprehension. They're just learning reading. They don't even really focus on reading comprehension until 2nd grade.
Yeah.
They're not really focusing on reading comprehension at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the way this is set up, it's just not age appropriate at all. And I just don't see how a teacher is going to be able to do this.
Well, they'd have to modify it.
They'd have to modify this greatly. I would not vote for this either. I would not have voted for this either. I can't blame.
The foundational reading and writing skills already, I don't even have to look at the read aloud curriculum. I already don't like it because of the foundational skills.
Yeah.
That was already a deal breaker for me.
Yes. Well, like we said, it did pass, and sadly. And now the schools are not forced to take this up.
No, they're not obligated. It is a $20 and $40 per student incentive for the district to take the curriculum book, the guidebook.
Mm-hmm. And do they have to follow it to the letter, or can they just pick and choose?
I think that would be up to the district.
Okay.
Like I said, some districts give you more freedom. Some districts are more strict.
No, but I mean, if a district wanted to take, would a district, and I didn't see this, but maybe you could tell me, does a district have to follow it, take the whole thing and follow the whole thing in order to get the $40 a kid?
Oh.
Which for some districts, that could be a good chunk of change there. So $40 a kid, do they have to take the whole thing and do all of it? Or can they just do maybe a couple of lessons?
I don't know. I don't even know how, but I also don't know how you would enforce that. How would you be able to know?
True.
So.
Well, how would you know that they were actually doing how would you know that they were actually doing the curriculum? Is this like an honor system thing? I mean, I guess there's got to be a way for the state to come back and say, and check up and see if you're using this.
Well, you have assessments.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's true. You got assessments. All right. Well, if you are interested, if your kids are going to public school, this is for K through, I think, 5th, right?
Yep.
K through 5.
Well, the foundational is K through 3rd. We focused on the K.
Okay.
And the reading section is, so all those read alouds, that's K through 5.
Okay. So if you have a child basically in elementary school and you want to see what this curriculum is all about, we are going to have a link on our website. The website name is way too long. So we're going to have a link on our website. So go to planospoliticalpitbull.com and we will have a link up there and you can go and it'll take you directly to the curriculum. Now, the website is very, very detailed and there's a lot of information.
Yeah, that's why when I was telling you the website name, I wasn't telling you the website name. I was telling you the link because you have to go through a bunch of things to find this curriculum.
Yes.
I was lucky enough to get a link so that I could actually find where this was.
Yeah, we'll give you a link to the curriculum, but the curriculum is very large and there's very many different parts to it.
It's very overwhelming at first.
Yes. So take it a bit at a time. You know, you don't have to read it all in one sitting, obviously, or you could just go to, you know, I have a person in my kids in 3rd grade, go to the 3rd grade section. So we will give you the link to it so you can read it. And if you do not like it, tell your school board and say this is not age appropriate. This is delaying things and has a lot of different problems.
Yes, even though this passed in the state board, districts are not obligated to take it. So if you don't like it, you don't want your district to take it, they don't have to tell them that this is not good.
Yes, this is not required. And the Board of Trustees should be looking at this right now and seeing if it's appropriate for their students. You know, if you've got kids in the majority of your district all went to preschool, or maybe you have a preschool in your district that the kids go to.
Or a daycare.
They'd be bored out of their tree with this. So this would not be appropriate for kids who've gone to preschool already. Well, that's going to be it for us for today. This is Esther.
And this is Ruth.
For Plano's Political Pitbull, signing off.